There is a country where every single citizen, by mathematical calculation, is a millionaire. Not on paper, not in theory. The National Wealth Fund alone, the pile of money this government has set aside on behalf of its people, now holds over $2 trillion. That works out to roughly $390,000 for every man, woman, and child within its borders. In 2025 alone, the fund earned $248 billion in profit in a single calendar year. This is not a Gulf state hiding behind security walls. It is not a tax haven built on secrecy. It is an open democracy of 5 million people sitting at the edge of the Arctic in a country where winter arrives in September and the sun sometimes forgets to show up for months at a time. The country is Norway. And here is where it gets strange. Norway is also the world oil producer that taxes its own drivers more heavily than almost any other nation on the planet. Fill a tank in Oslo, and you'll pay close to $9 a gallon, among the highest prices on Earth. For a country that pumps millions of barrels out of the North Sea every day, this is not an accident. It is a decision, a deliberate, almost stubborn act of self-imposed discipline. But the economics are only the beginning. There is a social code here. It has no official name in law. No court enforces it. No document exists to prove it. And yet every Norwegian knows it. Every Norwegian follows it. And every Norwegian will notice quietly and without saying much if you don't. It is called Janteloven, the law of Jante. Ten unwritten rules, all of them pointing in the same direction. You are not to think you are anything special. You are not to think you are better than us. You are not to think you are more important than us. 10 variations of the same instruction. Do not stand out. Do not show off. Do not mistake your success for something the rest of us owe you admiration for. In a country sitting on $2 trillion, this is the law people actually live by. And then there is the penguin. At Edinburgh Zoo in Scotland, there is a king penguin who currently holds the rank of Major General in the Norwegian Army. His full title is Major General Sir Niels Olav, the 3rd Baron of the Bouvet Islands. He has medals. He has a bronze statue. And in 2008, in a ceremony attended by 130 uniformed soldiers standing at full attention, he was knighted with the formal approval of the King of Norway. The penguin waddled down the line and inspected the troops. The soldiers held their salutes and tried not to smile. This is Norway, a country of immense quiet wealth, a country of ancient unspoken rules, a country that built the world's most generous welfare state from oil money, then turned around and taxed gasoline so heavily that 9 out of 10 new cars sold today are electric, a country that enforces humility as a social contract and celebrates it by knighting a penguin. You could call it contradiction, but the more you look, the more it starts to look like something else entirely. To understand why this country is the way it is, you have to go north, much further north than most people are willing to go. Because Norway's personality didn't come from its cities. It didn't come from its oil. It came from somewhere older and colder and far less forgiving than any of that. It came from the edge of what the planet allows human beings to survive. There is a place on this planet where the ground itself refuses to let anything die. Not metaphorically, literally. Svalbard is a Norwegian archipelago sitting roughly halfway between the northern coast of Norway and the North Pole. The permafrost here, the layer of frozen earth that never thaws, not in summer, not in any season, goes down hundreds of feet. And what gets buried in permafrost does not decompose. It does not break down. It does not go away. Which is why, since 1950, the town of Longyearbyen has maintained an unusual policy. If you are seriously ill, they fly you to mainland Norway. If you are dying, they fly you to mainland Norway. Burial has been banned here for over 70 years, not out of superstition, not out of ceremony, but because the frozen ground preserves whatever you put inside it, including things that were dangerous when they were alive. In the 1990s, scientists came here to exhume bodies from the 1918 influenza pandemic. The permafrost had kept them intact. The virus was still present, still recoverable. The ground doesn't just hold the dead, it holds everything they carried. This is where Norway begins. Not in Oslo, not in the oil fields of the North Sea, but here at the outermost limit of where a human settlement can function, where the rules of the natural world override every other consideration, and where survival requires something colder and more practical than courage. Svalbard is home to around 2,500 people. It is also home to roughly 3,000 polar bears. When you leave the settlement perimeter, even to walk a few hundred meters, you are required to carry a firearm. Not recommended. Required. The bears move freely across the entire archipelago. They do not recognize boundaries. They are not aggressive by nature, but they are large, they are fast, and they are hungry in ways that have nothing to do with malice. Here, the animal is not the exception. You are. And yet people choose to live here. Researchers, miners, scientists, families. A small town with a school, a supermarket, a university, and a rule that quietly reminds everyone you are a guest in this place. The landscape does not make exceptions. But Norway didn't just settle this island. It built something here that may outlast the settlement itself. Carved into the frozen rock of a mountain called Plateauberget Plateau Mountain, at an elevation of 130 meters above sea level, sits a structure that most people will never see in person, and almost everyone alive depends on without knowing it. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault. It opened in 2008. It stores over 1.3 million seed varieties from almost every country on Earth. The capacity is 4.5 million samples, enough in theory to hold backup copies of every food crop humanity currently grows. The location was chosen with specific logic, remote enough to be beyond any single regional disaster, cold enough that even a power failure wouldn't immediately compromise the storage temperature, and stable enough geologically that the mountain itself functions as insulation. Think about what this structure is. It is a backup hard drive for human civilization's ability to feed itself. It holds the genetic material of wheat, rice, maize, barley, the crops that underpin every food system on the planet. Seeds from conflict zones, seeds from countries that no longer exist in their original form, seeds deposited by nations that may never be able to retrieve them. It sits in darkness, accessed only when deposits are made or something catastrophic happens elsewhere in the world. Quiet, cold, waiting. Norway built this, not to claim it, not to profit from it, free to deposit, free to withdraw. It is simply here. That is the same instinct behind everything else you will see in this country. The bridge between Svalbard and the coast of mainland Norway is not a bridge, it is 1,300 kilometers of open water and empty Arctic sky. But there is a city on that coast, clinging to a series of islands just above 69 degrees north, that makes Svalbard feel almost accessible by comparison. Its name is Tromsø, and in winter it sits at the edge of everything the sun is willing to reach. From late November to mid-January, the polar night settles over the city like a lid over a jar. Not full darkness. There is a dusky blue light at midday that lasts an hour or two, enough to see the mountains and the water and the snow, but no sun. No horizon lit from below. No warmth from above. Just the long, slow rotation of the earth, carrying this small city through its annual trial. And yet at night, which here means almost always, something happens in the sky. The aurora borealis is not a light show in the sense that phrase implies entertainment. It is a physical event, solar particles ejected from the sun, millions of kilometers away, captured by the Earth's magnetic field and guided into the upper atmosphere, where they collide with gas molecules at altitudes of 100 kilometers and above. The result is color. Green, most often a cold chemical green, unlike anything produced by human hands. Sometimes violet, sometimes a deep red at the very edge of visibility. It moves, slowly, then quickly. Curtains of light fold across the sky in ways that have no visual equivalent on the ground. No footage entirely captures it. The colors shift faster than a camera's exposure can follow, and the scale horizon to horizon, from mountain line to mountain line, collapses any sense of proportion. Tromsø sits directly beneath what scientists call the auroral oval, a permanent ring of magnetic activity centered over the geomagnetic North Pole. The lights appear here more reliably than almost anywhere else on Earth. In a single winter, on a clear night with the right solar activity, they can run for hours. Some nights, they fill the entire sky. And while the lights move overhead, something else is happening in the water below. The fjords around Tromsø stay ice-free in winter, pushed open by the Gulf Stream's last warm pulse before it loses itself in the Arctic. And into those open waters, every November comes an event that has been happening long before the first humans set foot in this part of the world. The herring arrive, billions of them, Norwegian spring-spawning herring, overwintering in the dark fjords, moving in schools so dense that from above they change the color of the water. And where the herring go, something follows. Not one or two. Pods of orcas, sometimes hundreds at a time, tracking the herring migrations into the fjords with the calm, unhurried efficiency of an apex predator that has done this every winter for thousands of years. They move in coordinated groups. They corral the herring into tight balls near the surface. Then they strike with their tails a single blow that stuns dozens of fish at once and feed. It happens at night often, in waters where the temperature is just above zero, beneath skies that are lit on clear nights by shifting green aurora. Imagine standing on the bow of a boat at the edge of a Norwegian fjord in December. The air is -10 degrees. The water is black. Above you, the aurora is moving not dramatically, but continuously, the way a slow tide moves, and 20 meters off the bow, a 6-meter orca surfaces, exhales. The sound carries across the still water. Then it's gone. No announcement, no performance, just the ocean doing exactly what it has always done. Move south along the coast. The sky gets lighter. The mountains get closer to the water. And somewhere around the 68th parallel, the Norway of travel magazines finally appears, but not in the way those magazines show it. The Lofoten Islands rise from the Norwegian Sea like a wall. Jagged granite peaks, some over 1,000 meters, drop almost vertically into water that is, depending on the season and the light, every shade of blue that color is capable of producing. The islands are narrow. In some places, you can see ocean on both sides of the road at the same time. And at the base of those peaks, at the edge of the water, are the cabins. Red, uniformly, almost defiantly red, small wooden structures built on stilts over the water, their reflections doubling them in the still fjord surface below. These are Råbu fishermen's cabins, and they have been part of this coastline since King Øystein ordered the first ones built in 1120 AD to house seasonal fishermen. 900 years of the same structure, in the same place, doing the same job. The red color has a practical origin that says everything about how this country thinks. It was simply the cheapest paint, available fish oil mixed with pigment applied because it worked and cost less than the alternatives. The white houses belonged to the wealthy merchants. The red houses belonged to the men who did the fishing. That color hierarchy has been preserved for 9 centuries, not because anyone mandated it, but because the tradition held. In winter, those red walls against white snow and dark water are one of the most striking color combinations in nature. In summer, the same walls against green mountain and blue fjord are something else entirely. The place looks different in every season and impossible in all of them. But Lofoten is not just scenery. It is the place that for over 1,000 years fed Europe. The Arctic cod that migrate through these waters every winter were the foundation of Norway's medieval economy. Fishermen had learned something precise. The temperature in Lofoten between February and April hovers just above freezing, cold enough to prevent rot, warm enough to prevent the fish from freezing solid. In that narrow band of temperature, hung on wooden racks called gjell in the open air, and wind cod dries, completely losing 80% of its moisture without salt, without refrigeration, without any technology invented after the Viking Age. The result is stockfish, lightweight, nutritious, stable for years without spoiling. By the 14th century, stockfish from Lofoten made up more than 80% of the value of everything Norway exported. It fed the Catholic populations of Europe on their obligatory Fish Fridays. It provisioned Viking longships on voyages to Greenland and beyond. The first recorded stockfish exporter sailed from Lofoten in 870 AD, loaded his ship with dried cod and traded it in England. The process he used is functionally identical to what still happens on these islands today. Look up from the harbor in any Lofoten village during winter, and you will see the racks, thousands of them, wooden frames loaded with headless cod, hanging in pairs, swaying slightly in the Arctic wind. The smell reaches you before the sight does. It is not subtle, but it is one of those smells that once encountered becomes permanently associated with a place. People who grew up here recognize it the way you recognize a smell from childhood, immediately, completely without effort. And then there is Henningsvær, a fishing village of 500 people spread across several small rocky islands connected to the main Lofoten island by bridge. Unremarkable from the outside, except for one thing. In 1927, the local sports club needed a football pitch. There was no flat land, so they did what Norwegians apparently do when the landscape refuses to cooperate. They blasted and leveled the bedrock of the southern tip of Helensøya Island until it was flat enough to play on. The result is a regulation football field sitting on bare rock surrounded on three sides by the open Atlantic Ocean, with fish drying racks along the edges that double as the boundary markers. No grandstand. Capacity of roughly 500, which is also approximately the population of the entire village. FIFA has described playing on it as assaulting the senses. Salt air, fish smell, waves on three sides, mountains behind, the sound of a kicked ball mixing with seabirds and ocean. Kids here play at 2 in the morning during summer when the midnight sun makes the hour irrelevant. The pitch just sits there on its rock over the water, waiting. This is the north of Norway. Not the Norway of postcards or long summer evenings. This is the version that runs underneath all of it, the version that explains why the people here built seed vaults and jante laws and world-leading welfare systems. Not from abundance, from the deep cellular memory of what it costs to survive in a place that makes no promises. Would you live here? A lot of people do. Drop that in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where the line is for you. Because the country doesn't get easier as you move south. It just changes what it demands of you. Leave the Arctic behind. Move south and inland. The landscape changes warmer, greener, less brutal in its openness. But Norway doesn't stop testing you. It just changes the nature of the test. Here it is not cold that defines the limit, it is stone. There is a plateau of rock above the fjord in southwestern Norway that measures exactly 25 by 25 meters. A square, almost perfectly flat. The surface is cracked in places, ancient fissures running through the granite like lines on an old map. And on three sides, the rock simply ends. No slope, no gradual descent, just the edge, and then 604 meters of open air, straight down to the water below. This is Preikestolen, Pulpit Rock. No railings, no barriers, no signs telling you exactly where to stand. Norway made a conscious decision not to install any of that. The authorities chose to leave the edge exactly as the glacier left it exposed, honest and entirely indifferent to the person standing on it. You feel it before you see it. The last 100 meters of the trail, something changes in your body. Your footsteps slow without instruction. Your eyes start measuring distances differently. By the time you reach the plateau and understand what you're standing on a granite shelf formed 10,000 years ago, cantilevered over a fjord that drops deeper than most buildings are tall, your instincts have already made their assessment. Stand here, don't go closer. And yet, people walk right to the edge, sit with their legs dangling over, take photographs, eat lunch. The rock holds as it has held for 10 millennia. The fjord far below catches the reflection of the sky. The silence up here is specific, not the absence of sound, but the presence of scale, wind, stone, distance. The children who come here don't look at the drop. It's always the adults who look. Preikestolen is the most visited natural site in Norway, hundreds of thousands of hikers per year, a 2-hour trail from the nearest road, nothing at the top but the view and your own judgment. Norway trusts you with this. That trust, extended without ceremony or disclaimer, is itself a kind of statement about how this country sees the relationship between people and the land they walk through. But if Preikestolen is the place where Norway asks you to trust yourself, Trolltunga is the place where it asks you to earn it. The Troll's Tongue. A horizontal slab of granite extending roughly 10 meters out from a cliff face 700 meters above the surface of Lake Ringedalsvatnet. It juts from the mountain at a right angle to the vertical drop below it, not sloping, not declining, just out. Horizontal, as if the rock changed its mind halfway through falling. It was formed the same way Preikestolen was: glacial erosion during the last ice age approximately 10,000 years ago. As the glacier carved through the valley below, it removed the softer rock surrounding this harder slab. What remained was the tongue, frozen in mid-reach. The ice that shaped it has been gone for 10,000 years. The rock simply stayed. To reach it, you walk for 8 to 12 hours, 27 kilometers round trip. across high mountain plateau terrain, exposed, often windy, sometimes still snow-covered, well into summer. There are no shortcuts, no cable car, no helicopter landing pad at the top. 80,000 people hike to Trolltunga every year. 86% of them are international visitors. Think about that number. People fly from the other side of the world specifically to stand on a 10-meter ledge of rock that extends over a 700-meter drop and then walk back. The hike itself offers nothing but the walk, no villages, no cafes, no sheltered viewpoints along the way. Just the terrain and the weather and the promise that if you keep moving, the rock will eventually be there. There is no other experience quite like standing on Trolltunga. The ledge is narrow at its tip. The drop below is not frightening in the way that word usually means. It is clarifying. Everything that seemed urgent before you got here stops mattering for a moment. The lake below is small and perfectly blue. The mountains behind you are large and grey and indifferent. The only question the place asks is a simple one. How far are you willing to go to see something real? The answer, apparently, is an entire day of your life, 8 to 12 hours on foot, across open mountain terrain, with nothing waiting at the end except a rock and a view. But Norway doesn't only ask this question of hikers, it asks it of engineers too. The road called Lisevigen climbs 900 meters in elevation across 27 hairpin turns carved directly into near-vertical rock above the Lisefjord. 27 sharp bends, each one cut by hand through solid stone, each one exposing a new angle of the valley below before the next curve removes it. Drivers slow instinctively. The mountain offers no room for inattention. Further north, Trollstigen. The Troll's Path presents 11 hairpin turns on a slope so steep that waterfalls cross the road directly during snowmelt season. Not beside the road, across it. The water simply runs where gravity takes it, and the road exists in the spaces the mountain allows. It closes for months each year when ice and rockfall make passage unreliable. Maintenance here is not routine. It is continuous negotiation with the terrain. These roads were not built despite the mountains. They were built into them slowly by hand through blasting and patience and the Norwegian understanding that the landscape does not move for you. You find the path it permits and you build there. That same logic went underground. Connecting the cities of Åland and Lærdal in western Norway is a tunnel that runs 24.5 kilometers through solid mountain, the longest road tunnel in the world. It takes roughly 20 minutes to drive from one end to the other. 20 minutes of uninterrupted stone above and around you, the mountain pressing in from every side. A team of psychologists was brought in during the design process. Their job was not to make the tunnel beautiful. Their job was to prevent the tunnel from breaking the people driving through it. What they designed was a system of light. Every 6 kilometers, The tunnel opens into a large carved chamber, illuminated from below in yellow and from above in deep blue. The effect, according to the psychologists who specified it, is meant to simulate the sensation of an Arctic sunrise. The driver emerges briefly into something that feels like sky, like space, like morning, then re-enters the tunnel for the next 6-kilometer stretch. 4 times this happens. 4 simulated dawns in the middle of a mountain. Then, the exit, an actual daylight. There is something almost tender about this. An engineering project that employed psychologists to make sure the people inside it remained oriented, remained calm, remained connected to some memory of the sky. The mountain got its tunnel. The humans got their sunrise. Norway has over 900 road tunnels. 3 of the 10 longest road tunnels in the world are in this country. The geography demanded it, and the Norwegians obliged not dramatically, not with complaint, but with the same quiet, methodical problem-solving that defines everything else here. And then there is the place where going underground was not the answer, where the only solution was to go directly across. The Atlantic Road runs 8.3 kilometers along the western coast of Norway, connecting a chain of small islands via 8 bridges that leap from rock to rock across open ocean. It was voted Norway's construction of the century. It took 6 years to build. During construction, the site was hit by 12 hurricanes. 12. The workers came back after each one. The project continued. The road was completed in 1989 and has been open ever since, including during the storms that still regularly send waves breaking over the surface of the bridges. The most photographed section is the Storseisundet Bridge. It curves steeply upward, at its midpoint, rising 23 meters above the water, then drops back toward the road on the far side. From certain angles of approach, the optical geometry of the curve makes the road appear to end in mid-air, launching into the sky above the North Atlantic, with no visible destination. Drivers approaching for the first time often slow to a stop. The bridge goes somewhere. It just doesn't look like it from here. In a storm, this road is not metaphorically dramatic. Waves cross the guardrails. Spray clears the bridge deck completely. The road occasionally closes, but not often. It was built to take contact from the sea, not to avoid it. Standing at the edge of the Atlantic Road on a calm day, the water stretches west, without interruption, toward open ocean. Seabirds cross the frame. The bridges are clean, pale, functional. Nothing here is trying to impress you. And yet, there is a church in the Lærdal Valley that has been standing since approximately 1180 AD. Not rebuilt, not restored. Standing continuously through 8 centuries of Norwegian winters, through the Black Death that emptied entire villages, through 2 world wars that touched every corner of this continent. "840 years old, made entirely of wood." The Borgundstave Church is not large. It rises in tiers, each roof level, slightly smaller than the one below, all of it coated black, with tar that has been reapplied every generation for as long as anyone can remember. The smell reaches you before the building does. Old wood, old tar, something between a forest and a workshop. The builders used over 11,000 nails, every single one made of wood, not metal, wood. Because the people who built this understood something most modern engineers learn from textbooks: wood and metal expand and contract at different rates in cold weather. A metal nail driven into Norwegian timber in 1180 would have spent the next 8 centuries slowly working loose. A wooden nail moves with the beam around it. It stays. They didn't have engineering software. They had winters, and they listened. Look at the roofline, carved into the gable peaks facing outward dragon heads, open-mouthed. These are not Christian symbols. They come from 1,000 years before this church was built, from the same visual language that decorated Viking longships. Christianity had arrived in Norway, but it did not erase what came before. The old symbols were absorbed, reshaped, given new roles. The church became a place where pagan memory and Christian ritual coexisted without resolution. That tension was never settled. It was simply built into the wood and left there. Step inside. The darkness is immediate. The walls are thick. The openings are narrow, deliberately so according to the people who built them to prevent the entry of evil spirits. What little light enters comes from small circular windows cut high along the roofline, casting thin beams that move across the floor as the day shifts outside. It feels less like a cathedral and more like a forest. That was intentional. Worship here was never meant to overpower the senses. It was meant to reflect the world the congregation already lived in. Silence, shelter, endurance. At the far end near the altar hangs an altarpiece from 1654, a painting of the crucifixion, dark with age Christ rendered in the same tones as the wood around it. Not triumphant, not elevated above the space, just present the way faith tends to look in a place that has already outlasted everything else. On the walls, runic inscriptions carved by hands long gone. One reads, "Tor wrote these runes in the evening at the St. Olav's Mass." Another, simply Ave Maria. Viking script, Christian prayer, same wall, same century. This building has not resisted time. It has negotiated with it, season by season, repair by repair, coat of tar by coat of tar, for 840 years. The United States of America is 249 years old. That is not a judgment. It is simply a fact that in certain places lands with physical weight. Now leave the valley. Drive west toward the coast, toward a city that learned the hardest possible lesson about impermanence. At 2:15 in the morning, on January 23, 1904, a fire broke out in a factory on the Norwegian coast, likely started when an animal knocked over a burning torch. The wind that night was strong. The buildings were wood. Within hours, 850 structures were gone. 10,000 people stood in the streets watching their city burn. Only one person died. The evacuation somehow worked. But the city of Ålesund was gone. Not damaged, gone. What happened next took 3 years. 50 architects arrived from across Norway, many of them freshly trained in Europe, carrying with them a design language that was sweeping the continent at the turn of the century. Fluid lines, organic forms, nature rendered in stone and iron. Art Nouveau. They rebuilt Ålesund from nothing, and they built it entirely in this style. Not one street, not one neighborhood, the entire city center, 350 new buildings in less than 4 years, rising from the ash in pastel and stone. Ålesund today is the only city in the world where an entire urban center was rebuilt in a unified Art Nouveau style at a single moment in history. Walk its streets and the buildings speak to each other across the intersections. Turrets answering turrets, doorway arches echoing window, arches, dragon carvings from the stave, church tradition winding through ironwork installed in 1905. A city that was erased and came back more beautiful than before. There is something the older among us recognize in that. The fire that destroys the thing you built, and the decision, not easy, not certain to build again, to build better, to build in a way that says, this place matters enough to try again. Ålesund is that decision rendered in stone and preserved in salt air for 120 years. And then there is Oslo, where a different kind of statement was made, not through catastrophe and rebuilding, but through intention. The Oslo Opera House sits at the edge of the Oslo fjord, its white marble and granite surface sloping from the waterline to its peak like a glacier partially submerged. It opened in 2008. It was designed by the Norwegian firm Snøhetta, and it won the European Union Prize for Contemporary Architecture the following year. But here is the thing about the Oslo Opera House that no award captures. You can walk on it. Not on a special viewing platform, not on a cordoned-off section for ticket holders. The entire roof from the waterfront all the way to the apex is a public walkway, open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, free to anyone who wants to climb it. Children run up the slope in summer. Couples watch the sunset from the top. Joggers use it as a training hill in the early morning. The building is an opera house, yes, but it is also simply a hill that happens to belong to everyone. Snøhetta designed it this way deliberately. The idea was rooted in something Norway calls allemannsretten, the right of all people to access the natural landscape. It is a principle so embedded in Norwegian culture that it was applied here to a piece of modern architecture. The mountain is yours to walk. So apparently is the opera house. Think about what that says about how a society sees its cultural institutions. In most countries, a national opera house is a formal, space-ticketed, guarded, dressed up for. Entry is earned by occasion, or income, or social position. The building belongs to the state, but the experience is rationed. In Oslo, they looked at their National Opera House and asked, what if we just let people walk on it? And then they built it so that people would want to. The marble surface has subtle artistic variations carved into it by Norwegian sculptors. On a clear evening, with the Oslo fjord below and the city behind you, the light on that surface does something extraordinary. It moves the way light moves on water. The building is still. The light is not. Norway produces oil. Millions of barrels of it every single day pumped from beneath the North Sea and sold to the rest of the world. Norway is by this measure one of the largest fossil fuel exporters on the planet. And yet, in 2025, nearly 96% of all new cars sold in Norway were electric. Not because the government banned gasoline cars, not through dramatic declarations or moral campaigns. The internal combustion engine was simply taxed until it became impractical, and the electric alternative was made so accessible, so ordinary, so routine, that choosing anything else stopped making sense. ICE cars are taxed out of business, said the head of Norway's EV association. People don't like being told what to do, but they respond to prices. That is not ideology, that is engineering. The same sovereign wealth fund, built from decades of oil revenue, the $2 trillion fund that owns 1.5% of every publicly traded company on Earth, has quietly become the single largest institutional investor in the global clean energy transition. Wind farms in the Netherlands, solar arrays in Spain, grid infrastructure across Europe. The money that came out of the ground as petroleum is flowing back in as something else. Some people call this hypocrisy. Norway extracts the fuel that is warming the planet, then invests the profits in stopping it. The contradiction is real. Norway doesn't deny it. But consider the alternative reading, a country that looked at what it had understood, what it cost, and decided slowly, methodically, without drama, to spend the proceeds on the thing that comes next. Not because it was popular, because it was the only logical conclusion. That is very Norwegian. But the economics are only the surface of this story. Underneath them is something harder to measure and more difficult to export. There is a word in Norwegian that has no direct translation, friluftsliv, literally free air life. The practice of spending time outdoors, not for fitness, not for competition, not for Instagram, but simply because the outside world is where Norwegians feel most like themselves. Henrik Ibsen used the word in 1859 to describe a kind of spiritual connection with nature that he believed was the secret to human well-being. That was 167 years ago. The idea has not lost its grip. Surveys show that 77% of Norwegians spend time in nature every week. 25% do so almost daily. Norwegian kindergartens, the friluftsbarnehage, send children outside for up to 80% of the school day in all weather through all seasons. There is a saying here that most Norwegians learn before they learn to read. There is no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. This is not a tourism slogan. It is a philosophy of life that was forged in the same crucible as everything else you have seen today: the permafrost, the sea cliffs, the 8th-century-old church, the road that was hit by 12 hurricanes and finished anyway. When you live where nature does not accommodate you, you stop waiting for it to be convenient. You learn to go out into it as it is: cold, dark, unpredictable, yours. And here is what Norway has discovered, or perhaps never forgot, about happiness. It is not excitement. It is not the feeling of getting something. It is the quiet confidence that the systems around you work, that the land beneath you will be there tomorrow, and that you are connected to something larger and older and more patient than any problem you are currently carrying. The welfare state handles the anxiety of catastrophe, illness, unemployment, old age, before those things become personal crises. The Jante law handles the anxiety of comparison, the exhausting social performance of wealth and status, by simply making it unacceptable. The land itself, open to everyone by law, handles the rest. You can walk on the opera house roof. You can hike to the edge of any cliff. The mountain does not ask for your ticket. Think about everything you have seen today: a seed vault built for civilizations that don't yet exist, a fishing village where the football pitch sits on bare rock over open ocean, a church whose builders chose wooden nails because they understood 800 years ago that the material has to move with its environment or it will eventually fail, a road that was struck by 12 hurricanes and opened on schedule, a city that burned to the ground and came back more beautiful, an opera house designed so that ordinary people could stand on its roof and watch the light move on water. None of these things happened by accident. None of them came from wealth alone. They came from a particular way of seeing the relationship between people and the place they live in. Not the land as resource, not the landscape as backdrop, but the natural world as partner, demanding, indifferent, occasionally brutal, and entirely worth the effort of showing up for. Norway has been showing up for it for a very long time. The Penguin, if you are wondering, was promoted to Brigadier General in 2023. He inspected the troops. He did not seem impressed. Some things are too Norwegian to explain. You just have to come and see for yourself. There is an island at the edge of the Atlantic where 40,000 columns of stone rise from the sea like the spine of a sleeping giant, where castles crumble, not because they were conquered, but because the ocean simply refuses to let anything stand in its way, where 70 million people across the globe call this place home yet only around 70 million people remain on its rain-swept shores. This is Ireland, and the question you should be asking isn't why so many left. It's how anyone managed to stay at all. Before we go any further, here's a number that puts everything in perspective. For every person living in Ireland today, there are roughly 14 people elsewhere in the world who claim Irish ancestry. The United States alone has over 31 million people of Irish descent, nearly 5 times the population of Ireland itself. On St. Patrick's Day, more green beer is consumed in Boston than in Dublin. The Irish diaspora is one of the largest proportional emigrations in human history, and the reasons why stretch back through centuries of famine, eviction, and economic necessity. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. We begin where the earth itself tried to touch the sky. Before we can understand why people left, we must first understand what they stayed against. Picture this: you're standing on the northern coast of Ireland. Wind cuts through your jacket at 40 miles per hour. The air tastes like salt and smells faintly of seaweed drying on rocks. In front of you lies something that makes no sense. 40,000 connected columns of dark rock, each one shaped like a near-perfect hexagon, stacked like the world's most patient builder had 60 million years to work with. This is the Giant's Causeway. Science tells us it was made by ancient volcanic explosions when hot liquid rock cooled and shrank so evenly that it created geometric precision nature shouldn't be able to make. The columns range from a few inches to 39 feet tall. Some step down into the sea like a staircase built for creatures 3 times our size. Touch one, and you'll feel how smooth millions of years of rain and salt water have made them. Scientists explain the physics how basalt rock shrinks at certain temperatures and creates these hexagonal patterns. The same phenomenon occurred at Devil's Tower in Wyoming and the cliffs of Richest in Iceland. But here's the thing. Local tour guides will happily tell you both the science and the old stories in the same breath. Facts and legends aren't fighting each other here. They're dancing together. According to Irish mythology passed down through generations, a giant named Fionn mac Cumhail built this path to walk across the sea to Scotland and fight another giant named Benandona. When Fionn saw how massive his enemy really was, he ran home and his wife Una dressed him up as a baby. Benandone, seeing how enormous the baby was, imagined the father must be terrifying and fled back to Scotland in fear, tearing up the stone path behind him so Fionn couldn't follow. Here's a detail most visitors miss. The exact same hexagonal columns exist on the Scottish island of Staffa, straight across the water. The same volcanic event created both formations 60 million years ago. Fingal's cave on Staffa even has a name derived from Fionn. Fingal is simply the anglicized version. Even the geology seems to back up the giant's story. Don't tell the scientists I said that. The Giant's Causeway receives about 1 million visitors per year, making it Northern Ireland's most popular attraction. UNESCO designated it a World Heritage Site in 1986. But here's something the travel brochures don't mention. The best time to visit is early morning or late evening, when the tour buses have departed and you can hear the waves bouncing off the columns without voices talking over them. Stand there long enough and you'll start to understand something. This landscape wasn't built for humans. We're tolerated, never invited. Less than 2 miles from the causeway, perched on a cliff edge like it's daring gravity to do something, stands what remains of Dunluce Castle. From a distance, it looks like something from a Gothic novel. Stone walls, rising straight up from sheer rock columns, the Atlantic Ocean crashing 100 feet below. Sea spray reaches the ruins during storms. The wind never really stops. This fortress was built in the 1200s, and for 400 years it was one of the most powerful strongholds in Ulster. The MacDonald clan ruled from here, controlling the narrow sea route to Scotland. According to local accounts, they grew wealthy from trade war and salvaged treasure from a wrecked Spanish Armada ship called the Girona in 1588. The Girona was one of many Spanish vessels attempting to escape English attacks by sailing around the north of Scotland. Storms destroyed most of the fleet. The Girona struck rocks near the Giant's Causeway, carrying over 1,000 men. Only 9 survived. In the 1960s, Belgian divers discovered the wreck and recovered gold chains, jeweled ornaments, and coins artifacts now displayed in the Ulster Museum in Belfast. Historians debate exactly how much of this treasure funded castle renovations, but the timing is difficult to ignore. But nature, as always in Ireland, had other plans. On a stormy night in 1639, an entire section of the castle, the kitchen, collapsed into the sea. Servants inside were preparing dinner for the household. Their screams would have been swallowed by the wind and waves. Local tradition holds that the Countess of Antrim, Catherine Manners, watched the collapse from her bedroom window and declared she would never spend another night in a building that clearly wanted to destroy itself. She apparently kept her word. Within 10 years, the castle was abandoned. The Earl moved everyone to safer buildings inland. Today, you can still see where the kitchen once stood, a ragged gap in the ruins that drops straight to the churning sea. Tour guides like to say the Atlantic bit off a piece of the castle. It's dramatic. It's also not wrong. What remains is still impressive. 2 courtyards, a tower house, fragments of a great hall. Archaeological excavations have uncovered artifacts ranging from pottery shards to cannonballs. The castle appears on the cover of Led Zeppelin's album, Houses of the Holy, and has served as a filming location for various productions. Some wounds turn into tourist destinations. Some scars become landmarks. What does it mean to build something, knowing the sea will eventually take it back? The McDonald's didn't ask that question. They built anyway. And when the Atlantic finally claimed its peace, they simply moved on. Perhaps that's the first lesson Ireland teaches. Permanence is a negotiation, not a guarantee. Three hours south, the landscape transforms into something that belongs on a different planet. The Burren is 360 square kilometers of bare limestone, cracked and fissured like dried mud, stretched beyond its limits. From above, it resembles the surface of the moon, or perhaps the surface of a massive grey brain, wrinkled and folded in on itself. The name derives from the Irish word boirian, meaning rocky place, not creative, but entirely accurate. When Oliver Cromwell's land surveyor arrived here in 1651, he famously complained the area had not enough wood to hang a man, not enough water to drown him, and not enough earth to bury him. He was cataloguing Irish land for potential English settlement, and his assessment was clear: the Burren was worthless. He was wrong on all counts, but you can't blame him for his confusion. Walk across the Burren in late spring, and you'll understand why botanists make pilgrimages here. The limestone acts as a massive thermal battery. Dark rock absorbs warmth during the day and releases it slowly at night, creating microclimates in the cracks and crevices. Plants from the Arctic that normally grow only in Scandinavia survive here: mountain avens, spring gentians, alpine saxifrage. So do Mediterranean species that belong in Portugal: dense flowered orchids, maidenhair ferns, bloody cranesbill. Somehow, 75% of Ireland's native plant species grow in this supposedly dead landscape. Scientists still debate why this happens. Current theories suggest the Burren may have partially escaped the worst glaciation of the last ice age, becoming what ecologists call a refugium, a sanctuary where ancient species persisted while ice sheets scoured the land around them. The limestone's heat retention may also create conditions warm enough for Mediterranean plants to survive Irish winters. Whatever the explanation you can find, flowers growing here that exist almost nowhere else together on Earth. Life, it seems, finds a way to stay. The Burren also contains over 90 megalithic tombs, including the Polnabrone Dolmen, a burial monument from approximately 4,200 BCE that has become one of the most photographed prehistoric structures in Ireland. It looks like a giant stone table, and in many ways, it was archaeologists found the remains of over 30 individuals beneath it, along with grave goods like a polished stone axe and bone beads. These people lived 2,000 years before the Egyptian pyramids were built. They looked at this harsh, grey landscape and saw something worth staying for, something worth being buried in. The Burren doesn't follow the rules. Neither do the people living just offshore. Off the coast of Galway, 3 islands jut from the Atlantic like the knuckles of a clenched fist. The Aran Islands, Inishmore, Inishmaan, and Inisheer have sustained human habitation for over 4,000 years. Archaeological evidence confirms continuous settlement since at least the Bronze Age. And for 4,000 years, the people here have confronted the same impossible problem: there is almost no soil. The islands are pure limestone, scraped clean by glaciers worn down by wind and battered by waves that can reach heights of 30 feet during winter storms. The ferry ride from Rossaville takes about 40 minutes on a good day. On a bad day, it doesn't run at all. When you land on Inishmore, the largest island at roughly 8 miles long, the first thing you notice is the walls. Stone walls everywhere, thousands of miles of them, crisscrossing the island like a giant fingerprint. These aren't decorative, they're survival equipment. For centuries, islanders carried seaweed from the shore and sand from the beaches, layering it between rocks to create soil where none existed. A single acre could take years to build handful by handful. The walls served multiple functions. They marked property boundaries, protected precious crops from salt-laden Atlantic winds, and prevented the laboriously created soil from blowing away entirely. The Aran Islands experience wind on an average of 300 days per year. Average annual rainfall exceeds 1,400 millimeters. Without those walls, nothing would stay in place. And yet here's the part that makes you smile. People didn't just survive here. They created one of Ireland's most iconic cultural exports. Aran sweaters, with their intricate cable-knit patterns, were developed on these islands. According to tradition, each family had their own unique pattern combinations, so that if a fisherman drowned and washed ashore weeks or months later, his body could still be identified by his sweater. It's a dark origin story for a garment that now sells for hundreds of euros in tourist shops worldwide. But it's profoundly Irish beauty, born from the practical necessities of tragedy. The fishing tradition continues, though, on a diminished scale. Currachs, small boats made of tarred canvas stretched over wooden frames, are still constructed and used today. They're so light that 2 people can carry one, yet stable enough to ride waves that would capsize heavier vessels. Watching a currach navigate Atlantic swells helps you understand why these islanders have persisted where logic suggests they shouldn't. But survival on the Aran Islands, however remarkable, was never guaranteed. It required land, however meager. It required community. It required those walls and that soil, and the skills passed from generation to generation. For most Irish people, those foundations didn't exist. And when the potato blight came, the mathematics of survival became brutally simple: stay and starve, or leave everything you've ever known. Which raises a question that echoes across the centuries: where did everyone go? Part 1 showed you what they stayed against the wind, the stone, the impossible land. Now we confront what finally broke them. The answer begins at a harbor where the past feels uncomfortably close. Cove, pronounced Cove, sits on the southern coast in Cork Harbour, one of the largest natural harbours in the world. Large enough to accommodate the entire British Navy with room to spare. Today, it's a picture-perfect Victorian town, with colourful houses climbing the hillside in orderly rows, the soaring spire of St. Colman's Cathedral crowning the summit. But between 1848 and 1950, this harbour was the last glimpse of Ireland for approximately 2.5 million people. Let that number settle. 2.5 million from a single port over roughly 100 years. The port was named Queenstown under British rule, rechristened to honour Queen Victoria's visit in 1849. The timing matters. She arrived during the worst years of the famine, when people were dying in the streets of Cork. The new name struck many as grotesquely tone-deaf. After independence, the town reclaimed its Irish name. The Great Famine of 1845 to 1852 remains one of the defining catastrophes of Irish history. A blight called Phytophthora infestans destroyed potato crops repeatedly, but the disaster was compounded. Many argue it was manufactured by British policies that continued exporting grain and livestock from Ireland even as the population starved. Contemporary records suggest approximately 1 million people died from hunger and related diseases. Another million emigrated during the famine years alone, though exact figures remain debated by historians. The population of Ireland dropped by roughly 25% in 7 years, a demographic collapse without parallel in modern European history outside of wartime. Many of those who departed said goodbye from Cove's docks. Conditions on emigrant ships were often horrific, overcrowded, unsanitary, with high mortality rates on longer voyages. Passage to America took several weeks. Passage to Australia could take 4 months. Contemporary accounts describe families liquidating everything they owned for the cheapest tickets. Children bidding farewell to parents they would never see again. Letters that would take months to arrive if they arrived at all. The term coffin ships emerged from this period. On some crossings, mortality rates reached 30% before reaching port. Those who survived often arrived weakened by illness and malnutrition, vulnerable to exploitation in their new countries. Today, the Cove Heritage Centre displays passenger manifests from that era. The handwriting is neat and bureaucratic. Name, age, occupation, destination. There's no trace of fear in the ledgers, no acknowledgement that the clerk recording these entries was documenting a catastrophe in real time. It's the banality that devastates you, the ordinariness of administrative processing while a civilization hemorrhaged its people. What does it mean when leaving becomes the rational choice? When the calculus of survival points to anywhere but here? The emigrant ships didn't just carry people away from Ireland. They carried the implicit judgment that this land had failed them or been made to fail them. The distinction matters. It still does. 300 kilometers north in County Donegal, a similar story reaches a different conclusion. Glenveigh National Park is now one of the most unspoiled wilderness areas in Ireland. Approximately 16,000 hectares of mountains, blanket bogs and lakes that appear untouched by human presence. Golden eagles ride thermal currents overhead. Red deer gather in herds of dozens. The castle at the heart of the estate looks like it was designed by someone with impeccable taste and unlimited resources, which, as it happens, it was. But in 1861, the landowner, John George Adair, evicted approximately 244 tenants from this valley to create his private hunting preserve. The Derryveigh evictions are remembered with bitterness even today. Families received notice in April and were expelled by November, many with no resources and nowhere to go. Local accounts describe the evictions as conducted with particular cruelty, though historians note that such clearances, while devastating, were not exceptional for the period. Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Adair died in 1885, and his widow Cornelia demonstrated far more concern for tenants and workers than her husband ever had. She funded estate improvements, constructed housing for employees, and was remembered fondly by those who knew her. When she died in 1921, she bequeathed the property to the Irish state. Today, conservationists celebrate Glenveigh as one of Europe's great rewilding success stories. Golden eagles absent from Ireland for over a century due to persecution and habitat loss were reintroduced here beginning in 2001. The project imported young eagles from Scotland, fitting given the ancient connections between the two lands. Recent surveys indicate breeding pairs have established territories throughout Donegal and beyond. The population remains small, perhaps a dozen breeding pairs, but growing. The eagles don't know the history. They just know the thermals are excellent and the prey is abundant. Nature heals. That's the comfortable narrative, and there's truth in it. The cleared valleys become parks. The emptied estates become refuges. The wounds become wilderness. But some wounds don't heal so neatly. Some clearances happened in cities, not valleys. Some divisions were drawn, not through land, but through communities. And some of those divisions, despite peace treaties and political agreements, are still visible today. Visible, in fact, as concrete and steel walls running through residential neighborhoods, walls that still close at night. We've seen what people endured to stay. We've seen why so many couldn't. Now we confront something more recent, the cost of staying when staying itself became a political act. And now we travel to a city where recent history isn't history at all, it's still being negotiated. For approximately 30 years, from the late 1960s to 1998, Northern Ireland experienced a conflict known by the deliberately understated name, the Troubles. The causes were complex, rooted in centuries of colonization, religious division, and fundamental disagreement over whether Northern Ireland should remain part of the United Kingdom or reunify with the Republic of Ireland. Over 3,500 people died. Tens of thousands more were injured, many permanently. The violence concentrated in Belfast, where neighborhoods divided along religious and political lines. Catholic nationalist versus Protestant unionist became dangerous places to live, to work, or simply to walk through. The peace lines, sometimes called peace walls, were constructed to separate these communities. Some stand 15 feet high, others tower 40 feet. They're built of brick, iron, steel, and concrete, slicing through residential streets like artifacts from Cold War Berlin. Here's what surprises many visitors. Despite the Good Friday Agreement of 1998 officially concluding the conflict, most of these walls still stand. And some gates still close at night. In certain neighborhoods, they shut at 6 or 7 in the evening and don't reopen until morning. In 2024, more than 25 years after the peace agreement, neighbors who live 100 feet apart remain separated by barriers designed to prevent violence. The Northern Ireland Executive has committed to removing all peace walls by 2035, but progress has been slow. Communities can't agree on whether they're ready. And this is important, Belfast in 2024 is not Belfast in 1984. The shipyards that built the Titanic have been reimagined as the Titanic Quarter, a waterfront development covering 185 acres that now houses tech startups, film studios, a concert arena, and Titanic Belfast, an interactive museum. Shaped to evoke ship hulls, the museum has welcomed over 6 million visitors since opening in 2012 and ranks among the most popular attractions in Ireland. The transformation is incomplete. Poverty persists in many neighborhoods. Mental health issues linked to intergenerational trauma remain acute. Northern Ireland has the highest PTSD rates in the United Kingdom. But the energy in Belfast feels different now. Creative, forward-looking, sometimes defiant in the best possible ways. Young people here discuss the Troubles, the way Americans discuss the 1960s, important, formative, but not their daily reality. The future isn't guaranteed, but it's being constructed. What does it mean to build peace while the walls still stand? Belfast doesn't answer that question simply. It lives inside the contradiction. Every mural, every startup, every closed gate at nightfall is part of an ongoing negotiation between memory and aspiration, between the past that shaped this place and the future it's trying to become. Two hours south, another city knows something about rising from ashes. Cork was founded by Vikings in the 9th century on swampy islands in the River Lee. The name derives from the Irish word corcai, meaning marsh. The Vikings apparently valued accuracy over marketing appeal. Over a millennium, it grew into Ireland's second largest city and developed a fierce local pride that approaches regional independence. Ask anyone from Cork about Dublin, and prepare for an opinion. On the night of December 11, 1920, British forces, principally the notorious Black and Tans and Auxiliary Division, set fire to Cork's city centre in reprisal for IRA ambushes. They burned City Hall. They burned the Carnegie Library, which contained irreplaceable historical archives and over 40,000 books. According to contemporary reports, they burned over 300 buildings along St. Patrick's Street and surrounding blocks. Firefighters attempting to combat the flames were reportedly shot at or had their hoses cut. It was one of the most destructive single acts of the Irish War of Independence, and it shocked even British public opinion at the time. An official inquiry attempted to attribute the fires to the IRA, but eyewitness testimony was overwhelming. The city began rebuilding almost immediately. The English market, which miraculously survived the burning, has operated continuously since 1788. Vendors offer artisan cheeses, fresh seafood, spiced beef, a Cork specialty, and for the adventurous tripe, and drisheen, a blood pudding made with sheep's blood and milk that inspires either devotion or revulsion. Queen Elizabeth II visited the market in 2011 during the first official visit by a British monarch since Irish independence, a moment weighted with historical significance. Cork rebuilt. Cork remembered. Cork kept arguing with Dublin. Some things survive even fire. "40 kilometers south lies Kinsale, a harbour town so picturesque it borders on theatrical. Yachts bob in the marina. Restaurants serve fresh seafood with French and Asian influences. Kinsale has earned the designation Gourmet Capital of Ireland, with more acclaimed restaurants per capita than almost anywhere in the country. Narrow streets wind between pubs, each claiming to serve the finest Guinness in Munster. But in May 1915, these waters became internationally significant. RMS Lusitania was a British ocean liner, one of the largest and fastest passenger ships afloat en route from New York to Liverpool. On May 7th, approximately 11 miles off the coast of Kinsale, a German submarine, commanded by Captain Lieutenant Walter Schwieger, fired a single torpedo. The ship sank in 18 minutes, far faster than anyone anticipated. Of nearly 2,000 passengers and crew 1,198 died, among them 128 Americans. The sinking was controversial then, and remains so. Germany had declared the waters surrounding Britain a war zone and explicitly warned that vessels were legitimate targets. The question of whether the Lusitania carried munitions, specifically ammunition bound for British forces, has been debated for over a century. Diving expeditions have found evidence of secondary explosions consistent with weapons detonation, though the exact cargo remains disputed. What's certain is the tragedy dramatically shifted American public opinion against Germany and contributed to the United States entering World War I 2 years later. It's illegal to disturb anything without authorization. The sea keeps its dead. Empires tried to erase this place. Famines emptied it. Conflicts scarred it. And yet something survived that no army could conquer, no economic collapse could kill. This is how they stayed, not just physically, but culturally. This is what made staying matter. We've walked through the wounds now, the departures, the destructions, the divisions that still run through neighborhoods like surgical scars. But here's what empires consistently underestimate. You can burn cities, starve populations, and draw borders through communities. You can force people onto ships and watch them disappear over the horizon. You cannot, it turns out, kill a language, not if people refuse to let it die. On the western edge of Europe, in places where roads narrow to single lanes and mobile phone signals become unreliable, the Irish language never stopped being spoken. The Gaeltacht regions, officially designated areas where Irish remains the primary community language, encompass portions of Donegal, Mayo, Galway, Kerry, Cork, and Waterford. Approximately 90,000 people reside in these areas, and for them, Irish isn't a heritage performance staged for tourists. It's how they order coffee dispute with neighbors and tell their children to finish their vegetables. This matters because the British government spent centuries actively suppressing Irish language and culture. Legislation from the 17th and 18th centuries restricted Catholic education, which was conducted primarily in Irish. English became the language of law, commerce, and advancement. Speaking Irish increasingly marked poverty, backwardness, failure to assimilate. The famine accelerated this decline catastrophically. Irish speakers concentrated in poorer Western regions, most dependent on the potato, were disproportionately affected by death and emigration. A language that had been spoken on this island for over 2 millennia appeared destined for extinction. But in Dingle, on the westernmost peninsula in Europe, where the next landfall is North America, you can still walk into a pub and overhear conversations flowing in Irish. In Donegal, road signs display Irish names first, English second. Children in Connemara grow up bilingual without anyone treating it as remarkable. Is the revival complete? Number critics note that many students study Irish in school for 12 years and graduate barely able to sustain a conversation. Examination-focused pedagogy has arguably produced people who can pass tests but can't chat naturally. The Gaeltacht regions face ongoing economic pressure as young people relocate to cities. Government support programs sometimes generate perverse incentives. But the language survives. More people are learning it voluntarily than at any point in the past century. Irish language social media podcasts and streaming content have created new spaces for the language beyond traditional contexts. That's not nothing. That's a form of resistance that outlasted the empire that tried to eliminate it. Nowhere do language, music, and regional identity converge more naturally than in Galway. Galway is a city of approximately 90,000 people on the western coast that feels larger and more vibrant than its population suggests. The Latin Quarter, named for centuries of commerce with Spain and Portugal, is a labyrinth of cobblestone lanes, multicolored shopfronts, and pubs that seem to generate live music spontaneously, like some form of cultural photosynthesis. Walk into almost any pub on a Tuesday night, not Friday, not the weekend, an unremarkable Tuesday, and you'll find musicians playing traditional Irish music in a corner. Fiddles, tin whistles, bodhran drums, which look simpler than they are, Julian pipes, the complex bellows-driven pipes that take years to master. They're not on a stage, often without amplification, playing for each other as much as for anyone listening. Anyone can join if their skill merits it. Sessions can continue for hours, musicians arriving and departing the music, never quite stopping. Galway was designated European Capital of Culture for 2020, though the pandemic forced most programming online or into postponement. The title acknowledged what locals already understood: this city punches dramatically above its weight culturally. A few kilometers west of the city centre, the Salt Hill Promenade extends 2 kilometers along Galway Bay. It's a simple seaside walkway, concrete path, low seawall views across to the Aran Islands on clear days. People walk here daily, in all weather. At the western terminus, embedded in the wall overlooking the bay, sits an unremarkable grey rock. Local custom dictates that you must kick this rock when you complete your walk, not forcefully just a tap with your foot. Why, nobody's entirely certain. Some mention good luck. Others reference the Claddagh fishing community that once worked these waters, though the connection is vague. Many simply shrug and acknowledge they've done it since childhood because their parents did it and their parents before them. What matters is that people keep doing it. Every day, regardless of weather, locals and visitors complete their walk and kick the stone. It's not grand or dramatic, just a tap of the foot replicated across generations without anyone remembering why. Sometimes traditions don't require explanations. Sometimes they just require continuation. That might be the most Irish thing of all, persisting in rituals whose origins are lost simply because stopping would mean something ended. And here, they don't let things end easily. So they stayed, through stone and wind, through famine and exile, through conflict and survival. But staying is not the same as thriving. What does it mean when a place finally gets its chance to flourish? And what does it risk forgetting in the rush toward prosperity? Now we visit the oldest and the newest standing almost side by side. 45 minutes north of Dublin, in a bend of the River Boyne, lies a tomb older than the Egyptian pyramids. Newgrange was constructed around 3200 BCE, over 5,000 years ago, by people who left no written records and whose name we don't know. The mound is massive, 85 meters in diameter, 12 meters high, covering over 4,000 square meters and incorporating approximately 200,000 tons of stone and earth. A passage lined with megaliths extends 19 meters into the center, terminating in a cross-shaped chamber with carved stone basins that once held cremated human remains. The walls are decorated with spiral chevrons and concentric circles whose meaning has been lost. But the remarkable feature is something else entirely. On the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, a small aperture above the entrance, called a roof box, permits a narrow shaft of sunlight to enter the passage and illuminate the inner chamber. This happens for approximately 17 minutes around dawn on the few days surrounding December 21st. The alignment remains accurate after 5,000 years despite ground settlement and structural movement. Consider what this means. These builders possessed no metal tools, no written mathematics, no wheeled vehicles for transport, yet they understood astronomical observation well enough to calculate the winter solstice to within a quarter of a degree, and their engineering was sophisticated enough to create a waterproof structure that has never leaked despite 5 millennia of Irish precipitation. The lottery for access to the chamber during solstice morning receives over 30,000 applications annually for approximately 50 spots. The waiting list extends for years. Those fortunate enough to enter describe a profound experience, standing in absolute darkness as the first light of the shortest day penetrates stone that was ancient when the pyramids were new. Who were these people? We don't know their language, their social structure, their beliefs. We know only that they organized labor on an enormous scale, developed sophisticated astronomical knowledge, and created monuments intended for eternity. Then, for reasons we can't determine, the tradition stopped. Newgrange was already ancient when Celtic culture arrived in Ireland. By the time of Christ, it was older than the pyramids are to us today. What does it mean to build something meant to outlast everything you know? The Newgrange builders couldn't have imagined us, but they built for us anyway, or for whoever would come after them. That's a form of faith, not religious necessarily, just the conviction that the future deserves something from the present. "50 kilometers southeast modern Ireland conducts business in glass towers." Dublin's Silicon Docks, along the Grand Canal, host the European headquarters of Google, Meta, LinkedIn X, formerly Twitter, Airbnb, and dozens of other technology companies. Ireland's corporate tax rate, historically 12.5%, recently raised to 15% under international agreements, attracted corporations seeking English-speaking, well-educated, EU-based platforms for their European operations. The numbers are impressive, but complicated. Ireland's GDP per capita ranks among the highest globally, but economists note that corporate accounting practices, where multinationals book profits in Ireland to minimize taxation, render the statistics misleading. Modified gross national income was invented specifically to measure the Irish economy more accurately. Still, the transformation is visible. Construction cranes dominate the skyline. Glass-walled office buildings rise alongside Georgian townhouses that once accommodated merchants and aristocrats. The rapid growth hasn't been without friction. Housing prices have escalated dramatically. Dublin now ranks among Europe's most expensive cities for renters. Young professionals employed by technology giants often can't afford apartments near their offices. Protests continue. Political debates intensify. Homelessness rates have climbed significantly over the past decade. Some developments abandoned during the 2008 financial crisis have been completed. Others remain as monuments to how rapidly boom becomes bust. Dublin's soul isn't located in its tech campuses or tax arrangements. It's in the craich, that Irish term, signifying good conversation, good humor, good company, in ways that fun doesn't quite capture. You can work for Google and complain about Google in a local pub. You can resent the housing prices and love the city. You can celebrate economic success while questioning who benefits from it. The contradictions coexist. So what is Ireland finally? It's an island that exports pharmaceuticals software and aircraft leasing services while measuring itself in music sessions, hurling matches, and stories exchanged in pubs. It carries scars from 800 years of colonization, 30 years of violent conflict, and generations of emigration that scattered its people across every continent. And it keeps producing writers, musicians, and entrepreneurs who shape worlds far beyond its shores. The Giant's Causeway will erode eventually, though not in our lifetimes. The peace walls will come down probably. The language that nearly disappeared is now taught in schools where students also learn to code. The farms that were cleared have become parks where golden eagles hunt once more. The Aran Islanders are still constructing soil from seaweed. Galway pub musicians are still playing uninvited. People are still kicking that stone at the end of the promenade for reasons nobody remembers. Some things change, some things persist. How did they stay? By building walls against the wind and walls against each other. By creating soil where none existed and languages where empires tried to enforce silence. By leaving in such numbers that their leaving became its own form of presence. By kicking stones and playing music and refusing, absolutely refusing, to let anything end without their permission. Ireland isn't defined by those who left or those who stayed. It's defined by the tension between the two, the constant negotiation between departure and belonging, between the pull of elsewhere and the gravity of here. That negotiation never concludes. It just continues, like the sessions in Galway pubs, like the waves against the causeway, like the light entering Newgrange on the shortest morning of the year. Some things don't end, they just keep going. Ireland doesn't ask if you're ready, it simply is. And perhaps that's the only answer that matters. They are the poorest prefecture in Japan. Lowest average income in the country. Fighter jets roar across the sky from Kadena Air Base, sudden, loud, and often enough that people barely look up anymore. Typhoons that hit harder here than almost anywhere else. A history so brutal that within living memory, 1 in every 3 civilians on this island was dead. And yet, the old women who walk these streets in the morning are statistically more likely to reach 100 years old than almost any other women on Earth. Not just alive at 100, well, sharp, still cooking, still laughing, still walking to the market alone with a plastic bag and a slow, unhurried step that seems to say, "I have time, because I have always had time." For decades, scientists flew in with blood tests and questionnaires. They were looking for a gene, a microbe, something measurable, something they could turn into a pill. They left confused notebooks full of recipes they didn't understand, rituals they couldn't explain, and a quiet, uncomfortable feeling that the real answer had been right in front of them the whole time. They just couldn't see it because they were moving too fast. So today, we are going to walk slower. Because what keeps these people alive is not in a laboratory. It is not on a nutrition label. It is hidden in a chain of 160 islands suspended between Japan and Taiwan, in a sunken kingdom, in a war that refused to end in a blue the eye has no name for, and in a word that roughly translates to brothers and sisters for life. They stop eating before they feel full. They stay in the same circle of friends for decades, and even at 90, many of them still cook, walk, and live alone. This is Okinawa. And by the end of this journey, you may understand not just why these people live so long, but why the rest of us might be doing something fundamentally wrong. A place that refuses to be just Japan. Look at a map of Japan. Let your eyes drift south, past Tokyo, past Osaka, past the southern tip of Kyushu. Keep going into the East China Sea, into what looks at first glance like a handful of commas tossed across the water. That scattering is Okinawa Prefecture. 160 islands, only 49 of them inhabited, spread across a stretch of ocean roughly 1,000 kilometers long, the same distance that separates Paris from Rome. Geographically, Okinawa is almost closer to Taipei than to Tokyo. Culturally, it is closer still. This is the first thing most travelers get wrong. They land in Naha, they see Japanese characters on the signs, and they assume they have arrived in Japan, but tropical. They have not. They have arrived in the last living fragment of a kingdom that existed for 450 years before Japan officially absorbed it in 1879. A kingdom that wrote its royal letters in Chinese, prayed to its own gods, crowned its own kings, and traded with half of Asia while the samurai were still sharpening their swords up north. The locals have their own language, several actually. Linguists estimate that the Ryukyuan languages split from mainland Japanese more than 1,500 years ago, making them as different from standard Japanese as Portuguese is from Spanish. When a grandmother in a northern village speaks her mother tongue, a businessman from Tokyo cannot understand her at all. So before we even leave the airport, a quiet reset is needed. You are not in Japan the way a tourist knows Japan. You are somewhere older, somewhere that remembers being its own country, somewhere that still in ways most visitors never notice, refuses to forget. Now, before we go anywhere, you need one number. In a country of 125 million people, Okinawa produces centenarians, people who reach 100 years old in good health at a rate roughly 3 times higher than the rest of Japan and 4 to 5 times higher than the United States or most of Western Europe. Researchers have spent 30 years trying to replicate this. Every attempt has failed, not because the information is hidden, because the information is not a formula, it is a life. And that life begins of all places in a castle that has already burned to the ground twice. The ghost of the Ryukyu Kingdom. Above the city of Naha, on a ridge that catches the wind coming off the ocean, sits Shuri Castle. The first time you see it, you stop. The gates are red, not white. The dragons on the roof tiles have Chinese faces, not Japanese ones. And if you listen, really listen, the language drifting from the vendors nearby is not something a Tokyo visitor can follow. Look again at those gates, red, not the white you expect from Japan. And the signs on the souvenir stalls nearby, they mix 3 different scripts in a single sentence: Japanese, kanji, Okinawan phonetics, and something older that a tourist from Tokyo will squint at and give up. This is not a styling choice. It is a memory, a quiet insistence that this place was something else before it became what it is now. This is not Japan the way you know Japan. This is the last standing memory of a kingdom that refused to belong to anyone. The roofs are a deep oxidized red, the color of something baked rather than painted. The dragons on the tiles have Chinese faces. The courtyard mirrors the layout of Beijing's Forbidden City, and at the center, a throne room glitters in gold leaf and lacquer, so rich it seems almost excessive for an island this small. But this castle was not built to impress Japan. It was built to impress everyone else. For 450 years, this was the heart of the Ryukyu Kingdom, a small maritime nation that made itself indispensable to every major power around it. Ryukyuan ships moved between Ming China and the shogunate in Edo, carrying silk sugar ceramics and careful diplomacy. They paid tribute to both sides. They belonged fully to neither. They survived by being useful to everyone and a threat to no one, a balancing act so delicate it lasted longer than the United States has existed. Walk the grounds and you see the fingerprints of that balance everywhere. Chinese gates, Japanese tatami rooms, Korean-influenced pottery, Southeast Asian porcelain. The Ryukyu kingdom absorbed everything it touched and kept speaking in its own voice. The castle was destroyed completely in the Battle of Okinawa in 1945. What stands today is a painstaking reconstruction completed in 1992, damaged again by fire in 2019, still being rebuilt. And somehow, watching artisans use traditional tools to rebuild what was burned is more moving than the finished building ever could be. Some things are more honest in the process of being repaired. The walls that outlived the kingdom. But before there was Shuri Castle, there were the Gusuku. Scattered across the main island are the ruins of dozens of these ancient fortresses built in the 12th to 15th centuries, back when Okinawa was split into 3 warring kingdoms: Hokuzan in the north, Chuzan in the center, Nanzan in the south. The walls of these Gusuku rise out of the jungle like frozen waves, massive limestone blocks, each one cut to press its neighbor, perfectly, no mortar, no nails, no iron. Just stone, knowing how to hold stone. Some of these walls have stood for 700 years through typhoon after typhoon. They have never fallen. The most haunting is Nakagusuku Castle, halfway up the island. Walk it in the late afternoon when shadows stretch long across the courtyards and you feel the past breathing through the seams. The engineer who built these walls was named Gosamaru. He was a loyalist. He was betrayed. He took his own life inside these walls rather than raise a sword against his own king. They say on quiet nights, the wind still remembers him. An island of traders, an island of stonemasons, an island whose walls outlasted its kingdom. You'd expect a legacy like that to stand forever. It almost didn't. What the land remembers. In April 1945, 183,000 American troops landed on the beaches of Okinawa. They met entrenched Japanese forces, 60-degree cliffs, flooded rice paddies, and 300,000 civilians who had nowhere to run. What followed was 82 days of fighting so ferocious that American soldiers coined a new name for it. They called it the Typhoon of Steel. By the end of June, nearly 240,000 people were dead. The island had lost roughly 1 in 3 civilians. Whole villages were not damaged, they were gone, scraped off the map by naval guns and fire. School children had been handed grenades and told to die for the emperor. Families hid in limestone caves for weeks with no food, no water, and the slow, certain knowledge that no one was coming. You cannot understand modern Okinawa without standing at least once at the Peace Memorial Park on the southern tip of the island. There is a wall here. A long, curved granite wall called the Cornerstone of Peace. Carved into it are 240,000 names: Japanese soldiers, American soldiers, Korean laborers, Taiwanese conscripts, civilians, children. Every nationality, every side. No distinction between who was right and who was wrong. Just names. Read the names long enough, and you notice something. Many of them share the same family name. You are not looking at individual deaths. You are looking at entire bloodlines ending on the same afternoon, in the same cave, under the same shell. You come back to the surface blinking. The cicadas are very loud. The air tastes like salt. And you understand for the first time how recently this green, quiet, laughing island was something else entirely. The jets and the mangoes. Drive 40 minutes north from the Peace Park and the island changes without warning. The road opens up. Traffic gets louder. You pass the twin fences of Kadena Air Base, the largest American airbase in Asia, where F-15 fighter jets take off every 12 minutes on training runs. You pass American Village in Chatan, a waterfront strip of neon diners, surf shops, and pastel cafes that feels imported whole from Southern California. American teenagers at the beach. Okinawan grandmothers selling mangoes 2 streets over. Japanese tourists taking selfies in front of murals. The jets keep going overhead. Nobody flinches. Some Okinawans resent the bases. Some depend on them economically. Some do both on the same day. Today, 70% of all American military bases in Japan sit on Okinawan land, which makes up just 0.6% of Japan's total landmass. The disproportion is not lost on anyone here. Neither is the fact that the economy in many places runs partly on base wages. The island carries this contradiction the way it carries everything quietly, stubbornly, without letting it eat the core. A color the eye has no name for. Leave the jets behind. Point the car north, and let the island show you what it looks like when nothing has gotten in the way. North in Okinawa means something specific. The road narrows, the fast food signs thin out, the convenience stores disappear. And the sea on your left begins to do something the rest of Japan's sea does not do. It glows. Just off the main island's western coast is a cluster of small islands called the Keramas. Between them lies a stretch of water the Japanese have given its own name, Kerama Blue. Not turquoise, not aquamarine. Something more precise and at certain angles genuinely difficult to believe. You take a boat out early before 8 a.m. before the tour groups arrive. The boatman cuts the engine, points down. You put on the mask. You roll backwards off the side. The cold hits you first. Then the silence, a silence so complete it has weight. Then the color. Kerama Blue is not something you see. It is something you are inside of. Your own hands, held in front of you, look like they belong to someone else, lit from below, from the side, from everywhere at once. You float on your back. No sound except water. Then a shadow moves below you. Not a cloud, something alive. A sea turtle rises from 30 meters. Slowly, unhurried. It breaks the surface 2 feet from your face, takes one long breath, and slides back down without once looking at you. You don't move. The world gets very quiet, and you understand, without needing anyone to explain it, why the old Ryukyuans believed the sea could heal you. Not metaphor. You can feel it happening. Scientists measure water clarity in something called the Secchi depth, how far down you can still see a white disk. In the Keramas, that number regularly exceeds 40 meters. For reference, the global average for healthy open ocean is around 17. Sea turtles feed here, not behind glass. Right next to the kayaks. The same water, different season. A completely different world. And if the ocean still isn't enough, there is one place on this island where the ocean comes to you. The Okinawa Churaumi Aquarium. You walk in. Then the floor disappears. Above you, below you. On all sides, water. Not a tank. A volume of ocean so vast that the whale sharks moving through it do so the way planets move slowly because the space demands it. The biggest fish on Earth, 3 meters away. A child presses both palms flat against the glass and holds her breath as if breathing might disturb something. The whale shark doesn't notice. It keeps circling unbothered, ancient, enormous, in a world that has nothing to do with yours. One of them opens its mouth as it passes. The opening is wider than a door frame. Inside, nothing but darkness and water. This aquarium was not built to entertain you. It was built to make you small. It succeeds. Keep going north, and the sea gives way to jungle. The Yanbaru forest covers the northern third of the main island, a dense, humid tangle of subtropical trees, now recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. No viewing platforms, no guided light shows, just red dirt trails going somewhere dark and alive. And somewhere in here lives a bird that cannot fly. The Okinawa rail was not confirmed by Western science until 1981. That is not a typo. Humans put a rover on the moon before they formally confirmed this species existed. It is flightless, about the size of a small chicken, with a red beak and red legs, and it has a habit of darting across backcountry roads at dawn. Fewer than 1,500 remain in the world. Every single one lives in this forest. You will almost certainly not see one. They are shy, hidden, active, mostly at sunrise. But knowing it is there, somewhere in the canopy, above you running, because evolution forgot to give it wings, changes how you walk. You slow down. You listen more carefully. You start noticing that the forest is watching you in a way you can't quite name. Yanbaru is also home to the Okinawan woodpecker, rarer than the giant panda. To ancient reptiles that survived the Ice Age simply because this tangled interior was too inconvenient for development to reach. Naturalists sometimes call this forest the Galapagos of Japan. What they mean is time moves at a different speed here. Some things were saved by being in a place too slow for the modern world to bother with. And somewhere above the canopy on the right morning, with the right guide, you can zip line from one ridge to the next. You strap in. The guide checks the line. He says nothing, just nods. You step off the platform. The forest drops away beneath you. All of it at once, the canopy. The red dirt trails the dark spaces between trees where the flightless bird is somewhere running. 10 seconds of flight over something that has never been cleared, never been paved, never had a road cut through it. The air is cooler up here. It smells like rain that hasn't fallen yet. And below you, somewhere in that dark green, the bird that forgot it had wings is doing exactly what it has always done. You wonder which one of you made the right choice. The bay you cannot swim in. Further south and west, a short flight from the main island, sits Ishigaki, and on its northern coast, a bay that looks like something from a dream someone else had. Kabira Bay. White sand, small green islands rising out of water, so clear that boats appear to float above their own shadows. The color runs from pale jade at the shore to deep royal blue, further out shifting with every cloud that passes. And you cannot swim here, not because it is dangerous, because underneath that impossible water, in frames suspended from ropes, local families are growing black pearls. The oysters are delicate. The water conditions are exact. One careless tourist with flippers can destroy a farm that took a decade to build. So you take the glass-bottom boat. You watch. You photograph the unreachable. And then you get out of the water and let the oysters do their quiet, patient work. There is something very Okinawan about that instruction, the most beautiful water on the island. Do not touch it. The beach made of stars. A short ferry from Ishigaki, on the quiet beaches of Miyako Island, there is a beach that will make you stop walking. Pick up a handful of sand. Hold it to the light. It glitters. Not ordinary glitter. Stars. On some of the smaller islands in the Yaeyama chain, there are beaches where if you pick up a handful of sand and hold it to the light, it glitters with tiny pale stars. Actual stars. 5-pointed, 6-pointed. Shaped almost too perfectly to be natural. They are natural. They are the fossilized exoskeletons of foraminifera, single-celled marine creatures that lived, died, and left behind calcium carbonate skeletons shaped against all reasonable expectation like stars. Trillions of them. Accumulated over millions of years. You let them run through your fingers slowly. Each one is smaller than a grain of rice. Each one is a perfect, complete form, older than any building on this island, older than the kingdom, older than the war. Millions of tiny deaths that became something beautiful. You are not walking on sand. You are walking on astronomy. The structure that shouldn't be there. And now, the strangest stop of all. Off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan's westernmost inhabited island, closer to Taiwan than to Okinawa's main island, about 25 meters below the surface, there is a structure. Divers first noticed it in 1986. A massive flat-topped formation of stone with what appear to be right-angled terraces, carved step-straight channels, and arches. The whole thing stretches more than 150 meters across. Some geologists say it is natural, a trick of tectonic fracture lines in sandstone that can produce geometric shapes. Others, including several Japanese archaeologists, argue it is the remains of a submerged civilization from before the last ice age, which would make it older than the pyramids by thousands of years. The debate has gone on for nearly 40 years. Neither side can fully close the case. Around 10,000 years ago, sea levels in this region rose dramatically as the ice sheets retreated, swallowing vast stretches of coastline, burying anything and anyone who lived there. If Yonaguni's terraces are one of those lost sites, the people who built them vanished before written history began. Swim through it once in a strong current with light filtering green through 25 meters of water and the low mechanical sound of your own breath, and you will feel the hair on your neck pick an answer your mind refuses to confirm. Some questions are better left open. They keep you coming back. What they actually eat and when they stop. The food of Okinawa is not exotic. This is the part that surprises people. It is not a superfood diet. There is no proprietary powder, no cold-pressed anything. What the old people here have been eating their whole lives is, by the standards of modern nutrition marketing, almost embarrassingly simple. But before we talk about what they eat, go to Makishi Public Market in Naha. Go early, before the tourists, before 8 a.m. when the vendors are still arranging their stalls and shouting across to each other and drinking coffee from paper cups. Walk through the ground floor. The fish counter alone is disorienting colors that don't exist in supermarkets. Whole fish in reds and yellows, so bright they look painted. Shellfish still moving in shallow trays of seawater. Then turn the corner. There it is, on a white tray under fluorescent light, face up on a bed of crushed ice, a whole pig's head split clean down the center. The skin smooth and pale, the ears intact, eyes closed. It is not disturbing. It is honest. This is an island that uses everything, every part. The vendor behind the counter sees you staring. She holds up a piece of slow-cooked ear between her fingers, raises one eyebrow. You try it. It is gelatinous, slightly smoky rich, in a way that has nothing to do with fat and everything to do with time. She nods once. That is the only review she needed. Goya, a bright green, lumpy, bitter melon, stir-fried, with egg and pork in the dish, called Goya champuru. Island tofu firmer and saltier than the kind you find in cities, eaten almost every day. Mozuku seaweed, slippery and briny, harvested from the coral shallows nearby. Purple sweet potato emo, which was the daily staple for centuries before rice became affordable. Small amounts of pork slow-cooked until the fat renders down to almost nothing every part of the animal used. And the sea, always the sea. Fish, shellfish, the minerals that come from eating things pulled directly from clean water. Almost no refined sugar, almost no processed oil, almost no beef, very little dairy, and almost nothing that comes in a box. The vegetables come from garden plots behind their own houses. The fish comes from fishermen they know by name. There is a phrase for this approach, nuchi gusui. Literally, food is medicine. But something more than that, closer to food, is life force. A meal is not fuel to be consumed quickly and forgotten. A meal is a deliberate act of maintaining yourself. Epidemiologists who have studied Okinawan diets note that traditional caloric intake here runs roughly 11% lower than the Japanese national average and about 20% lower than in the United States. Heart disease rates among traditional Okinawans are a fraction of those in Western countries. Rates of cancer and dementia are measurably lower, not because of any single ingredient, but because of everything together eaten in a certain way over an entire lifetime. And that way, that specific how of eating, is where the real secret lies. The 400-year-old rule: a small table, low to the ground, one bowl of miso, a plate of Goya champaru still steaming, a piece of purple sweet potato on the side. An old woman sits across from you. She watches you eat. You are halfway through the plate, maybe less. She reaches across, gently without asking, moves the plate aside. You look up. She meets your eyes. She says nothing. She doesn't need to. This is hara-hachi-bu. You just learned it without a lesson. Before almost every meal, many Okinawans say something quietly to themselves. Hara-hachi-bu. It is not a prayer. It is not a diet rule from a magazine. It is a 400-year-old Confucian instruction that has become on this island almost a reflex. Stop eating when you are 80% full, not satisfied. Not stuffed, not one more bite. 80%. Walk away still a little hungry for that last 20. This sounds simple. It is not. Your brain takes roughly 20 minutes to receive the signal that your stomach is satisfied, which means by the time most people feel full, they have already eaten too much. Hara-hachi-bu asks you to stop before that signal ever arrives. To trust the discipline more than the sensation. The lesson was free. It has been available the whole time. We just kept eating past it. The word that might be the real secret. After all the food science and the centenarian statistics, the answer that surprised researchers most was not on anyone's plate. It was sitting around a low table, drinking tea, laughing about something that happened 40 years ago. In Okinawa, there is a social structure called a moai. And it might be the most important thing on this island. A moai is a small group of close friends, usually 4 to 8 people, formed in childhood and kept for life. Not a club, not a support group. Something closer to a lifelong contract made between 5-year-olds. They meet regularly. They share small amounts of money each month in a common fund available to any member who needs it. Illness, loss, a hard season. No paperwork, no interest, no shame. But the money is the smallest part. The larger part is simply this: someone always knows how you are doing. Someone notices if you go quiet. Picture 5 women. Same table, same chairs, every month, without exception, for 40 years. One Tuesday in November, one of them doesn't come. The others don't call, don't send a message, don't wait. They stand up from the table. They walk to her house. They find her. She is fine, just a bad day, a bad week, the kind of heaviness that makes you not want to explain yourself to anyone. They don't ask her to explain. They sit down on her floor. Someone puts the kettle on. Nobody mentions that she missed the meeting. That is not the point. The point is that she is theirs, and they are hers. And that has been the only accounting that has ever mattered. Someone shows up at your door, not because you called, but because they had a feeling. Some of these groups have been meeting without interruption for 80 or 90 years. Members have watched each other fall in love, bury parents, raise children, lose children, go grey, go slow. They have never once in the entire span of a life not been present. Think about what that actually means. Research from Harvard University, an 80-year study, the longest of its kind, found that the single strongest predictor of a long, healthy life was not diet, not exercise, not income. It was the quality of close relationships. Chronic loneliness, that same research showed, produces inflammation in the body roughly equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Social isolation accelerates cognitive decline. It weakens the immune system. It is measurably a faster killer than obesity. The Okinawans did not need a study to know this. They built a whole system 400 years ago in which nobody was ever alone, and then they forgot that it was unusual. What real wealth looks like. When researchers list Okinawa as Japan's poorest prefecture, they are measuring income. They are not measuring the fact that a 90-year-old woman here on paper has almost nothing, no significant savings, no second property, no portfolio, but walks into the market every morning to hugs gossip. And someone pressing a ripe tomato into her palm and refusing to take payment. They are not measuring the moai that covered a widow's rent for 4 months without being asked, without a conversation about gratitude. It was simply what you did because she was yours and you were hers, and that was the only accounting system that mattered. Estimates suggest there are still tens of thousands of active moai across Okinawa today, though their numbers are declining as younger generations move to cities and global social patterns take hold. The old system is not disappearing overnight. But it is thinning, and the health data in younger Okinawan cohorts is beginning to reflect that thinning. The secret was never just the Goya or the 80% rule. The secret was the people around the table. It was always the people. And the most uncomfortable part, we already knew this. We just kept choosing the other thing. The sacred spaces with no walls. Most travelers after a week in Okinawa expect to find great temples. There aren't any, not in the way you'd expect. You can drive the length of the main island and see nothing resembling the towering cedar gates of Kyoto or the gold-leafed pagodas of Nikko. The Ryukyu Kingdom borrowed heavily from China and Japan in its architecture and politics, but in spiritual life, it kept something older. Something that didn't need a building. In the forests, you will sometimes find a clearing, a few large stones, an offering of salt or rice wine. No priest, no incense, no walls. just silence, and the feeling that the silence means something. This is an utaki, a sacred grove. Utaki are the holy places of the Ryukyu tradition, patches of old forest, specific rock formations, places where the light falls at a particular angle through the trees. Some are the size of a living room. Some stretch across entire hilltops. They don't announce themselves. You walk into one, and you feel something shift. The air cools slightly. The sounds outside seem to step back, and something in your chest gets quiet before your mind has had a chance to explain why. The most powerful of these is Sefa Utaki on the island's southern coast. Two massive limestone rocks lean against each other, leaving a perfect triangular passage between them. Sunlight enters through that gap in a narrow beam at certain hours of the day. The air inside drops in temperature within a single step. In the Old Kingdom, only the highest priestess was permitted into the innermost chamber. Kings could not enter. Warriors could not enter. The space was considered too sacred for power. Today, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Most people walk through it in about 20 minutes. Some stay much longer. It is one of the few sacred places in the world that does not ask you to believe anything specific in order to feel it. The women who spoke to the gods. For centuries, the highest spiritual authority in the Ryukyu kingdom was not the king. It was his sister. The Noro female priestesses held the ceremonial power of each community. While the king issued laws and managed trade, only the high priestess could bless his decisions. The spiritual authority ran through a female line parallel to, and sometimes above, the male political structure. In a region where most ancient cultures had pushed women out of the temple, Okinawa had quietly placed them at the center and left them there. There are still Noro today. Most are elderly. The tradition is fragile. But on certain days of the year, in certain villages, if you are paying attention, you will see a woman in white walk alone into a grove of trees. She will not look at you. No one follows her. That is the whole point. Some things cannot be observed without being changed. She goes in alone so that what she carries can stay intact. The night the drums start. Every August across the island, the drumming begins. This is Obon, the time of year when Okinawan tradition holds that the ancestors return briefly to the world of the living. And the way you welcome them is not with candles or prayers whispered in a quiet room. The way you welcome them is with drums, enormous barrel drums strapped to the chests of young people who dance the Asa through the village streets from house to house all night. The drumming is not decorative. It is a summons. A way of telling the people who came before, we are still here. We remember you. Please come home. Watch an Isa procession at night, under torchlight, on a narrow village road, with the drumbeat going through your chest instead of just into your ears, and you understand something the island has understood for a long time. The dead are not somewhere else. They are at the edge of the room. and the living have a responsibility to keep calling them close. In Okinawa, death is not treated as an ending. It is treated as a different kind of presence. The Great Rope and the City that Prays Through Sport. Once a year in October, the city of Naha does something extraordinary. It stages the world's largest tug-of-war. The rope, and this is a verified Guinness World Record, is over 200 meters long. It is braided from rice straw. It weighs more than 40 tons. It is so thick that a full-grown man cannot wrap his arms around it. Instead, hundreds of smaller ropes branch off it like roots, and tens of thousands of people grab those branches, east side of the city against west. Men, women, children, grandparents, tourists. All pulling. The contest is prayer dressed as sport. East victory is said to bring good fishing. West victory, good harvests. Nobody actually loses afterwards. Pieces of the rope are cut off and taken home, hung above doorways as protection against illness for the coming year. In Okinawa, the line between celebration and ritual is not always clear. Sometimes the most important things are the ones that look from the outside like they're just having fun. The villages that said no. And finally, in some of the most remote corners of this island chain, there are places that have simply declined to change. On Takatomi Island, a 15-minute ferry from Ishigaki, the roads are still made of crushed white coral sand. Not asphalt, not concrete, sand. The houses are still built in the traditional Ryukyu-style single-story thick walls, terracotta red clay tile roofs held down with heavy white mortar to stop typhoons from lifting them away. Water buffalo carts still move along the main road, not as a tourist attraction, though tourists do ride them, but as the actual pace of the place. Walk into the village on a weekday morning. Not a tour group morning, a real morning, when the only sounds are the creak of the cartwheels on coral sand and a rooster somewhere behind a stone wall. An old man is sweeping the path in front of his gate with a broom made of dried grass. He doesn't look up as you pass. The motion is unhurried, precise, the same motion you suspect that he has made every morning for 60 years. A cat sleeps on top of a low terracotta wall, its body draped perfectly over the curve of the tiles, as if it was placed there for a photograph. It was not. It has simply been sleeping in this exact spot since before you arrived. Children's shoes, 3 pairs different sizes, are lined up outside a front door. The smallest pair is the size of your hand. There is no restaurant on this island, no convenience store. One small shop that sells cold drinks and a few basic things. The woman behind the counter is watching a small television mounted near the ceiling. She hands you your change without looking away from the screen. This is normal here. This is life. The people here could have paved the roads decades ago. They chose not to, because once you pour concrete over coral sand, you cannot pour it back. Some things once changed are changed forever. Takatomi made its decision early, and it has lived with that decision every day since peacefully as far as anyone can tell. Sometimes the most radical act is simply refusing to accelerate. What this island is actually trying to tell us. So, after all of this, after the blue zone data and the Karama blue water and the 700-year stone walls and the burning castle rebuilt twice, after the 240,000 names on the granite wall and the underground tunnels and the jets over Kadena, after the Goya and the 80% rule and the Moai that outlive their own members, after the women who speak to trees and the 40-ton rope made of rice straw and the bird that forgot it had wings. What actually keeps these people alive so long, it is not one thing. It is everything layered. It is the purpose of walking to the market, the mineral-dense vegetables grown in volcanic soil, the ocean 20 minutes from anywhere on the island, a spiritual life practiced in groves, not cathedrals, without clergy, without expense, without a ticket. The knowledge rehearsed every single day that no one in your circle will let you fall, and the very Okinawan conviction that you should never be completely full, not of food, not of wealth, not of noise, because 20% has to stay open. For the neighbors, for the ancestors, for the next meal, for the wind coming off the sea. Most of us in the rest of the world are trying to do the opposite. We are trying to fill everything, our stomachs, our calendars, our screens. We are terrified of the 20% that is empty because empty feels like failure, like poverty, like falling behind. Okinawa is a quiet 450-year-old argument against that fear. The part that should make us uncomfortable. But here is where the story gets harder. Okinawa is changing fast. The younger generation raised on fast food, long commutes, social media, and the mainland's version of success has seen its health markers quietly slipping. Life expectancy among younger Okinawans is no longer the world-leading statistic it once was. The rates of diabetes and obesity in the under 40 population now exceed the Japanese national average in some metrics. The old bodies outlasted a war, a military occupation, and 7 decades of poverty. The new bodies are being quietly defeated by a lifestyle that never had to fight at all. The Moai still exist, but younger members join less consistently. The Utaki are still there, but fewer young people know how to approach them. The Goya is still growing in garden plots behind old houses, but the grandchildren eat at the McDonald's near the base. The island that wrote the rulebook on human longevity is in the middle of quietly abandoning it, and it may not realize the cost until a generation has already paid it. If you want to see the Okinawa that earned those centenarian statistics, the living, breathing version of it, you may want to come before that version has finished rewriting itself. 2 sentences. The lesson of this island, if there is one, comes out of the mouths of old people, simply without drama. They do not present it as wisdom. They present it as obvious. They say in different words the same two things. To live longer, eat to 80%. To live better, love more. That is it. That is the entire thing. There is no 30-day program. There is no supplement. There is no life hack version. There is a quiet island suspended in a blue. The eye has no name for where people figured out, in the long, slow way that cultures figure things out over hundreds of years, that the cost of a long life is not paid in money. It is not paid in discipline. It is paid in attention. Attention to the sea, to the garden, to the neighbor's face when something is wrong, to the meal in front of you and the body that is asking you to stop. We are not just dying sooner. We are living wrong, and the island knows how to fix it. The only question left is whether we are willing to slow down long enough to listen. The flight home. Book the flight. Take the ferry. Walk slowly through the covered market on a Tuesday morning. Eat the Goya even if you hate it. The first time you might change your mind by the third. Stop at the stone walls that have outlasted kingdoms. Float in the Karama blue until you forget what day it is. Stand at the cornerstone of peace and read the names until you remember what a name actually costs. Watch the Asa drummers under the torches at night. Let someone old feed you something simple, and when they tell you to put down your fork, put it down. And then on the flight home, in that particular kind of quiet that only exists above the clouds, ask yourself the only question this island ever really asks. What would you be willing to leave 20% empty in your own life in exchange for 20 more years of it? If you made it this far through the kingdom and the war and the blue and the bitter melon and the circle of friends who keep each other alive, you already know the answer.